I have a rash on my apple bag, and the only cure is more PS2. Releasing in North America on October 26, 2000, Sony's PlayStation 2 would go on to sell about 160 million units over its lifespan, making it the highest selling video game console of all time. Although the Nintendo Switch is sniffing at its taint, but it remains to be seen if the king will finally be dethroned. One of the biggest inspirations for creating this channel was rediscovering my PS2 and its legendary library. The games on PS2 provide an experience that modern gaming seems to be lacking more often than not. Brings me back to a time when you could just boot up a game. No downloads, no battle pass, just play Hello Kitty Roller Rescue to your heart's content. With a library of over 4,000 titles released across NA, EU, and Japan, a few great titles are sure to fall through the butt cracks and not get the attention they deserve. So grab your crusty cum sock and slap your grandma's titties. We're going over my top 10 PS2 hidden gems. Like and subscribe if you love your gushing granny's old floppy titties. Based on one of my favorite Chinese cartoons for children, Berserk Millennium Empire Arc, chapter of the Demon Holy War, is a third-person action game developed by Ukes, the wrestling guys. Released exclusively in Japan on October 7, 2004. There is an English patch version, which is the version that I'm talking about here. The game covers the events of the Millennium Falcon arc from the Berserk manga. You, of course, play as Guts, the African-American swordsman, hurling around your giant chunk of iron, obliterating all the stupid idiots that throw themselves at you. Animation and sound effects give the combat a heavy feeling, which feels great considering Guts' weapon of choice. What sticks out the most to me is the character models, choreography, and animations. This game came out in 2004, and it looks like a modern anime game. Guts' character model looks incredible, and the boss fights offer an epic and cinematic experience. Look at this boss fight. It's crazy that this game was doing stuff like this almost an entire year before the original God of War, which is what I can most closely compare as boss fights to. This game is considered by many to be one of the best Berserk adaptations ever released, which is a shame considering it's 20 years old at this point, and we still haven't gotten a truly great Berserk game since, at least in my opinion. This point comes up a lot, but I can't help but agree that the animations in this 2004 PS2 game are far better than the animation in the 2016 Berserk anime.
Oh man, look at this fucking thing! Oh man! Look at that, Jay! Holy shit!
This game is a true gem and it's fully playable in English nowadays, so if you're a Berserk fan, and I know you are, give this game a look. Raging Blades is a third-person beat-em-up released in May of 2003. You have 4 different characters, with a further 2 unlockable to choose from, each one fulfilling a specific archetype. You have an all-rounder knight guy in Gary, a hulking heavy axe guy in Bud, a stupid cowardly wizard in Rybrant, and lastly a quick and nimble barefisted monk in Tina. This is a beat-em-up ass beat-em-up. You run around beating the ever-living shit out of bad guys in the same way I beat my meat when I'm hiding in the bathroom closet as my aunt takes a poo. The game wasn't met with much critical success on release, some reviews stating it's a little too easy, there isn't much enemy variety, and it's a little short. However, these days I would say the game is still worth a look. We don't get as many beat-em-ups as we used to, and its length makes it a short but sweet weekend game. Each character feels different from each other. There are a few unlockable characters and multiple difficulty options if you want more. I hardly see anybody talking about this game these days, and I think it deserves a little more recognition. Kill Switch is a third-person shooter developed by Namco, released on October 8, 2003. You play as a guy named Nick Bishop, who has neural implants installed that makes him vulnerable to remote control by a guy named Controller. Throughout the game, Bishop suffers headaches when recollecting lost memories of his waifu.
Say my name.
You're goddamn right.
You run around shooting up all the bad guys. One of the most notable things about this title is how its cover system inspired a lot of future games that would make cover systems and shooters more prolific. Cliff Bleszinski cites Kill Switch as an influence in implementing the chest-high cover system in Big Beefy Boy Simulator Gears of War. Kill Switch fucked, so Gears of War could cuck. The original Uncharted also benefited from Kill Switch leading the way for a shooter cover system. Lead designers on Uncharted Evan Wells and Amy Hennig cite Kill Switch as an inspiration for the cover system seen in Uncharted.
Subway, where winners eat. Ow.
It's a relatively short game. You could easily beat it in an afternoon, leaving plenty of time to enjoy your sister's homemade beef.
Holy shit! Did you just come in your sister? You bet your sweet bippy I did.
If you want to check out a game that inspired the gameplay of some of the biggest third-person shooters ever made, give Killswitch a look. Shinobido Way of the Ninja is a badass ninja simulator released in 2005 in Japan, 2006 in Europe. It's a shame that this game doesn't come up very often when discussing great stealth games. You play as an amnesiac ninja known simply as Go, or the Crow, taking on various missions thrust inside you by 3 different warlords, dispensing missions upon you every morning by shooting an arrow into Go's tender anus. Different tasks include assassination, theft, and kidnapping targets. Go is an agile and capable individual, able to sneak around and watch guards poo. You'll have to use silent tactics to get around the levels. Although Go is capable, he's at a great disadvantage when outnumbered. You can take cover behind elements within the environment, such as crouching behind walls or running across rooftops. You could even wall run. How badass is that? Sneaking up on enemies undetected will allow you to assassinate them, and you can hide the bodies of your unsuspecting victims in shadowy areas or dropping them into wells, thus ensuring the decaying corpse will poison the water and kill absolutely everyone, including innocent women and children. Feels like forever since we got a pure stealth game in the same vein as Tenchu or even Assassin's Creed, back when Assassin's Creed was a stealth series and not a microtransaction simulator. This game is over 20 years old and kicks Ubisoft's ass at what they used to be the best in the business at. The money you earn from completing missions can be used on upgrades and gadgets that you can implement in upcoming missions. Accepting missions from certain warlords can affect how a future mission plays out. For instance, accepting a mission to steal a bunch of food from a warlord's men will result in those same men being hungry and much weaker next time you face them. If you're in the mood for a classic stealth experience, or you think ninjas are cool, you should definitely check Shinobido out. Do you love Looney Tunes? Do you love watching Bugs Bunny inflict horribly traumatic amounts of pain on his mortal foes? He explodes people like 100 times and somehow the sweet embrace of death never comes.
You stupid rabbit! Like this!
Well, that's good because our next game is very reminiscent of the cartoon shenanigans of the original Looney Tunes. Whiplash is an action platformer released on November 18th, 2003. You play as a disgusting weasel named Spanx, who is physically chained to his best friend in the world, a rabbit named Redmond. They're both seemingly trapped within a cosmetics testing facility of a company known as Genron. Although it seems at the outset that you're controlling 2 characters simultaneously, the game controls much like any other 3D platformer. You run and jump and beat up bad guys, using Redmond as a little rabbit wrecking ball. Redmond is completely invincible due to the cosmetics testing done on him by Genron, and thus can be used to traverse the environment as a grappling hook, as well as used to solve puzzles by being set on fire, electrocuted, or blown up like a balloon. Upon its release, it was met with mostly average review scores. The biggest notable thing was the RSPCA, or Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, and the Police Federation of England and Wales were pissed that the game seemingly featured immense animal cruelty, not only through whipping Redmond around, but its depiction of animal testing. As usual, these dum-dums didn't actually play the game. Otherwise, they would have realized the game actually makes a mockery of such practices and was a condemnation of testing cosmetic products on animals. Defeating special human enemies in the game awards you with upgrades to both Spanx and Redmond. You can also free other animals that are trapped within the facility. The game keeps a running dollar amount total of all the damage you've done to the Genron facility, racked up by destroying environmental objects as you play. Finishing the game beyond a $6 million threshold will cause Genron to go bankrupt and unlock more stuff. Whiplash has a great sense of humor, and if you're looking for a traditional platformer with funny characters that slip through the cracks, give Whiplash a chance. Do you like to be spooky? Do you like to do a scare? PS2 is home to many survival horror games, but one that I never hear much about these days is Rule of Rose. Releasing in 2006 worldwide, except for in the United Kingdom because they thought the game was about beating up children or something. Game takes place in 1930 England, and you play as a 19-year-old waifu named Jennifer. The premise of the game is that Jennifer finds herself trapped aboard a massive airship, no obvious means of escape. She's told by a filthy little child that she is now part of something called the Red Crayon Aristocrat Club, and every month she needs to offer some sort of gift to the aristocrats. If she fails to deliver a gift, the dirty little hobo will kill her.
Don't try to escape, bitch, or we'll kill you. Be right back.
Rule of Rose is a third-person survival horror game with a lot of familiar mechanics if you've played other games in the genre. You explore a creepy environment, picking up key items that will later be used to solve puzzles or reveal more of the story. The combat is designed to not give the player very much power. Thus, the only means the player has to defend themselves are things found about the airship, such as dinner forks or loose pipes. The most common enemy in the game are called imps. which are these little baby-looking creatures that latch onto Jennifer to, I guess, hug the life out of her. Jennifer doesn't deal very much damage, and because her weapons are all makeshift crap she finds, she needs to get pretty close to her enemies in order to connect with her swings. Like with other survival horror titles, it is sometimes more wise to avoid combat completely in order to preserve your resources. Jennifer is accompanied by an autistic chicken that she names Brown, whose loyalty she gains by rescuing it from the gross little children. Brown can be commanded to sniff out helpful items that restore Jennifer's and Brown's health, as well as distract enemies with his growl so Jennifer can sneak by. The story features some psychological themes, including what children may experience as they grow up, as well as how cruel children can be to each other and to animals. While it doesn't do anything outside of the ordinary in terms of gameplay mechanics, Rule of Rose is well worth a play for horror fans for its story and atmosphere alone. Blood Will Tell is a third-person action game released in 2004 in Japan and North America, 2005 in Europe. It's based on the manga series Dororo, created by Osamu Tezuka, the creator of Astro Boy. You play as both Dororo and her gentleman friend Hyakimaru. Combat is mostly played as Hyakimaru, who has 48 of his body parts stolen by 48 fiends, and as you kill these fiends, you gain your body parts back. Really cool touch is how the game is in black and white until Hyakimaru gets his eyes back. The rumble feature of the DualShock 2 isn't implemented until Hyakimaru recovers his central nervous system. It's an incredible way to blend the story with gameplay features and mechanics. He also has these sword arms, which either makes jerking off really bad or really good. Must suck to wipe his ass though. Hyakimaru can slice and dice bad guys and do cool mid-air spinny moves. Bosses are lifted directly from the manga, and their designs are a huge high point to the game. Replaying levels reveals some optional boss fights, which encourages players to re-explore previous levels. As you recover body parts, Hyakimaru recovers abilities he couldn't pull off without them. You can switch between two combat stances at any time during combat, either your cool sword arms or your katana. There are sections of the game in which you play as Dororo. She can squeeze into smaller areas that Hyakimaru can't fit into, so she can smoke on cigarettes.
Took my grandma car because I got mad at my mom, and then I suddenly had my friend come in, and he smokes with cigarettes.
She's able to fight enemies on her own, but isn't quite as capable as her bodyguard. Fans of third-person action games like Berserk or Devil May Cry will find something to love in this game. For some reason, Blood Will Tell has become absurdly expensive over the years, so unless you're a hardcore collector, just sail the high seas on this one. Or, more accurately, just play it however you can. The developers or Sega aren't making any money from these ridiculous eBay prices. Oni is a super stylish third-person action game with gunplay elements, developed by Bungie of all developers, the guys who made Marathon, Halo, and Destiny. You play as a waifu android named Konoko, who works for a special forces branch of the police called the TCTF, which stands for Technological Crimes Task Force. After learning that her employers have been keeping crucial information from her, Konoko sets off on a journey to learn more about her past before she became an android. Gameplay consists of beating the soul out of bad guys. Konoko can punch and kick enemies as well as throw them around, which they are kind of into. There's a selection of ranged weapons in the game, including pistols, rifles, and rocket launchers. Progressing through the game unlocks more melee combat options and combos. The game's visuals radiate 80s and 90s anime aesthetics, being influenced by such works as Ghost in the Shell and Akira. Konoko bears a resemblance to Motoko Kusanagi, which shows how much this game wears its visual influence on its sleeve. It has a strong cyberpunk art direction, which makes it look and feel really unique on the PS2. Animations for the melee combat are smooth, which helps Konoko and the player feel like a badass. A portion of the soundtrack was composed by Martin O'Donnell and Michael Salvatore, who, if you don't know, are the crazy fucks who compose iconic music from Halo Combat Evolved, one of the most iconic video game soundtracks ever conceived in the realm of man. The game has a dedicated community behind it, releasing numerous fan-made mods and patches to improve the game's performance and add new features. It's awesome that there are people out there actively developing mods for a PS2 game. Oni stands out as one of my personal favorite action games on the PS2. I love the visuals and the setting of the game, and if you're a fan of 80s and 90s anime, you'll adore this title. Samurai Western is a criminally underrated action game that came out in 2005. Players take control of a samurai named Gojiro Kiryu, who travels to 1800s Wild West America with the goal of finding and killing his brother Rando, throbbing justice. However, Gojiro finds himself pulled into local conflict with a tycoon named Goldberg and his sexy minions, who he reluctantly stands against due to his personal ideals of protecting and helping innocent people, if he's capable. The game is divided into individual levels, where the main goal is to simply obliterate every other human being on screen. Gojiro dispatches enemies with over 5 different sword styles, each offering similar controls but a wide array of different moves and combos. He can dodge bullets and block them with his katana like a god. He even has a rage mode that allows him to dispatch enemies with a single blow. There are dozens of swords to find throughout the game, as well as a cool co-op mode. A second player is able to help Gojiro out as Ralph the Gunman, who isn't very capable in melee combat, but who needs courage when you have a gun?
You don't need courage. After all, who needs courage when you have a gun?
The visuals are awesome, blending samurai iconography and fighting style with a Wild West setting. Reviewers weren't very fond of the game during its initial release, but they can huff jenkem out of my rosebud. The game has garnered a dedicated fanbase over the years, and rightly so. There are over 100 spinster tchotchkes to unlock as you play, including swords, accessories for Gojiro, including cat ears, and 25 different playable characters. The amount of unlocks alone is a fun goal to chase. Samurai Western is a true hidden gem on the PS2, and fans of action games owe it to themselves to check it out. Rogue Galaxy is a massive JRPG developed by Level 5 that gets nowhere near enough praise as it deserves. One of the main reasons for this is its release date and relatively poor sales. It originally released in Japan in 2005, but a director's cut was released in North America in January of 2007, well after the end of the PS2's life cycle in North America, and after the PS3 was already out. The game's main protagonist, named Jaster Rogue, is a filthy poor who lives on planet Rosa as an agricultural worker. He yearns to leave his pathetic menial labor life behind and explore space with a ragtag group of misfits and waifus. Well, his wish is granted when he lies directly to the face of some space pirates who mistake Jaster for a famous bounty hunter named Desert Claw. Jaster plays along with this in order to leave his disgusting planet behind. Combat takes place in real time. Jaster and his 2 other party members can freely move about in battle, combat being more like an action hack-and-slash game like the Tales series, rather than a turn-based affair. Party members not directly in control of the player act independently, based on a strategy set by the player. Each character has something called an action gauge, which decreases every time the player takes action. This prevents the player from just mashing unlimited attacks to victory in every battle. The gauge slowly refills over time, or is filled instantly upon a successful block. Having certain party members in battle will allow special team-based attacks. There's this kind of passive skill tree that governs character power, called the Revelation Flow. It's very similar to how character progression is handled in Final Fantasy X and 12, where you unlock nodes on a board by sacrificing items to the poisonous flood. Characters unlock new abilities through this system, with each character having a unique layout and set of abilities to unlock. There's a weapon synthesis mechanic in Rogue Galaxy. When a weapon's stats are completely maxed out, there's a greedy toad named Toady that you can feed weapons to. Inserting 2 maxed out weapons into his gaping hole will result in a new, higher level weapon squirting out, which then has to be maxed out in order to synthesize further. The amount of content in this game is staggering, especially considering it's a PS2 game. There's a whole ass Pokemon minigame in this thing, wherein you capture little bugs and have them kill each other in an arena. There's a factory side game that lets you produce items from blueprints, requiring the player to set up a whole workflow within a factory in order to produce items. There's a hunter ranking system where the game tracks and awards hunter points to the player based on meeting certain criteria. Reaching point thresholds results in awards for the player. There's a list of optional mini-bosses called quarries that the player can hunt down for a big chunk of points. The visuals in Rogue Galaxy are incredible. Level 5 is well known for their cel-shaded character models and amazing environments, and they had already proven themselves at this point with Dragon Quest VIII.
Cool, blimey!
Rogue Galaxy still stands up today in my eyes in terms of visuals and animation. It's a technical feat that this game manages to look this good while completely avoiding loading screens when moving around a particular planet. If you're in the mood for a big, beefy JRPG that's loaded with content, Rogue Galaxy is right up your butthole. It deserves way more recognition, and it's even playable on PS4 these days, so it's easier to access now. So there you have it. The undisputed top 10 PS2 hidden gems, and if anybody disagrees, firmly strike them upon the head with your crusty old cum sock.